All right, so lucky to be joined today by the president of Showtime Sports, Stephen Espinoza. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us. I know you got a busy week ahead of you with the Danny Garcia, Jose Benavidez Jr. Fight coming up Saturday night from Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Danny Garcia in Barclays Center again. He opened the place so many years ago and is still going at it. What's your thoughts on Danny and where he stands? Former two-division champion, looking to move up to 154 and sort of, stake a claim of some sort.
I've always felt, not always, I felt recently that Danny's probably one of the most underappreciated guys in the sport. And maybe, as much as Angel, talks and as boastful as he is, Danny's not somebody who really talks a lot of trash or boasts. He's charismatic, he's articulate, he's personable, but he doesn't boast a lot. So when you look at it and you say, look, in 39 fights, he's fought 15 current or former world champions. He's 12-3. Those 3 losses were against Spence, Thurman, and Porter. The Spence one was, in my eyes, a clear win for Spence. But look, on the other 2, he won at least 5 rounds. Those were close fights. So around here, there, and he's got 1 loss to only to Errol Spence, the best guy in the division.
Yeah.
So the reality is, like, a lot of fighters talk about will fight anybody, but over the last decade, he truly has. Like, going back to Lucas Matisse and Amir Khan and Vav Judah, through Spence, Porter, Thurman. He's got to me, a Hall of Fame caliber resume. He certainly has a fan base, but I don't think he gets the respect and the credit that he deserves.
Yeah, and in victory, could he jump all the way to the front of the line and get a shot at Jermell Charlo for a title, given who he is?
He certainly got the name and the recognition. I think with an impressive enough victory, I think we all, everyone who's a Danny Garcia fan, and myself included, think this is a pretty tall order. Jose Benavidez, doesn't have the resume that Danny does, but he's a rough, tough, big guy. And this is a career opportunity. And we all know, like, you get one of those guys and you hand him a career opportunity, whether it's Hasim Rahman, whether it's Jose Benavidez, like, those guys are going to show up better than they ever have before.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it actually, from Jose's perspective, if he wins, it creates what for you is a dream situation, because you could put Benavidez versus Jermell Charlo. And I'm sorry, I shouldn't jump ahead of Tim Tszyu, but I am, just because Charlo's the undisputed champion. But you could get Jose Benavidez versus Jermell Charlo and David Benavidez against Jermall Charlo, perhaps on the same card. Could you imagine that?
I had not thought of that, and I think that's a fantastic idea. I'll make sure and give you credit when
Thank you.
If it happens, because that's just that's phenomenal. Brothers against brothers. I'm sure it's been done somewhere, sometime in history. But at that high level, with one an undisputed champion, one also a world champion, that'd be a phenomenal.
2 unbeatens. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, think about it. Yeah, let's see what happens. But yeah, back to Danny Garcia. Do you think that it would be in position to get that Charlo fight by winning here?
Yeah, I think if he looks impressive enough, look, he'd have to look really impressive to jump to the front of the line against anybody. But if he does something impressive, sure. Look, there's the division is a little top heavy. So which means for a guy like Danny, who's new to the division, it won't take much to jump up to that upper tier. And there's an upper tier of maybe 6 or 8 guys who are really at the top tier of the division. And he could get there or pretty close with an impressive victory. The same for Jose, Jose Jr. as well. If Jose is able to have an impressive victory over a guy with a resume like Danny's, then all of a sudden you have to start. Like, would you want to see, see him in a Lubin fight? Would you see him in a Tony Harrison fight? Or do you want to see him go straight to the top of the division and one of the champions or near champions.
Yeah, I mean, even Danny Garcia versus Terence Crawford has been floated.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. Look, I think it's an exciting fight, and I expect that neither one of them is going to take a step backward. But it's sort of hard to overstate what a decisive victory would mean for either one of them. It really would be a meaningful win.
It's an interesting card too, because the depth of it. You've got the heavyweight Adam Kownacki basically involved in a fight of his life, a do or die moment for him. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the Turkish fighter's name, but look, after his 2 losses back to back to Robert Helenius, Kownacki really needs to win this fight to continue his career in a significant way, at least on a level that he's at right now.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I mean, I think both of those losses came as surprises. Not that anyone thought that Kownacki was invincible, but the first one came out of the blue, and then I think most people assumed he'd correct the mistakes. And having lost twice, there are real questions about where he goes from here. But in terms of the card overall, I think you're absolutely right. As I said at this press conference, I mean, look, we've got off TV in the streaming portion of the card, you've got Vito Melnicki Jr., who is headlined on Fox. You have Sergey Derevyanchenko, who is headlined to pay-per-view, and
basically beat Golovkin.
Yeah, and you've got Junior Union on the card. You've got, I mean, even the opening fight of the night at 5 p.m. Is 2 local New York area fighters, one 13-0, one 11-0. And so that's the opening fight of the night. So this is one of those where, look, you really, if you show up at 5, 6 p.m., you're going to get a whole night of entertainment with guys that you've heard of.
Gary Antoine Russell too. I mean, the 140-pounder. I mean, such a can't miss guy. I mean, he's not even a prospect anymore. He's a guy who seems targeted for a world title. 15-0, 15 knockouts, taking on Rances Barthelemy, who's never been stopped. And you've got to think that that's what Russell wants to do. This is the brother of the former featherweight champion, long-reigning champion, who's basically fighting in the name of his father, who trained all of his sons.
Yeah, you really have to respect what Gary Antoine is doing, because at 15 fights, he is seeking out guys that no one wants to fight and no one looks good against. Victor Postal, Rances Barthelemy, no one is rushing, no one's lining up to get those. And if he, in back-to-back fights, stops Postal, who'd never been stopped before, and stops Barthelemy, who's never been stopped before, 2 awkward guys, 2 skilled guys, if he does that in his 14th and 15th fight, that's a real statement. So, you don't quite hear Gary Antoine's name, when you talk about the best guys at 140, but you should. I mean, especially if he's able to beat Barthelemy. But even at this point, he's been really impressive. He's a seek and destroy kind of fighter. And he started fighting meaningful fights about 10 or 11 fights in, and so again, this is one of those guys that you look at and said, look, this is somebody to watch. And I think that's what makes this card so fun. Each one of those 3 televised fights are meaningful. I mean, it's really meaningful on both sides of the equation, whether it's, the Kownacki attempt at comeback, whether it's Gary Antoine trying to elevate his career, or what I believe is a 50-50 matchup in the main event.
Right, and obviously you're in a busy time period here, because now next week you've got the Jake Paul pay-per-view in New York. Again, this is something I did some reporting on this, Stephen, because when I heard, I think it was BJ Flores say that the New York State Commission had said that, hey, you may not want to take this fight, Jake, against Hasim Rahman. I checked it out. I said, I talked to the commissioner. Did you guys truly say that? She said, no, we did not. We did not say that. But look, it is a tough fight for him, and we know that for sure it's his first legitimate boxing match. So I mean, there is a lot on the line here for Jake, and all of the plans that both you and him have for his career. How nervous are you heading into this fight?
I am nervous. Look, you know, it's his call, and I admire the ambition, and admire the sort of the fearlessness of it. But this is a much tougher fight than Tommy Fury, and when I heard it, and look, they don't really ask my opinion. I mean, they asked my opinion in terms of, you know, what I approve of the fight. I said, yeah. But if you ask me on a personal level, if I were advising Jake, I don't think I would take this fight. You know, Hasim Rahman has been, you know, he hasn't had the best opposition, but he's been with great trainers. He's been in good gyms. He's got 100 amateur fights. He's bigger. He's, you know, he's strong, and he's a natural boxer. Like, it's sort of the same thing as sort of Garcia Benavidez. Like, a win on either side would be really meaningful for either guy. You know, for Rahman, it puts him at a level of notoriety he's never had before. And for Jake, it's a level of credibility even beyond what he would have achieved by beating Tommy Fury. Like, this is every bit of a legitimate boxer, and a bigger and stronger one at that.
Yeah, you spend any time with Hasim Rahman Sr., you know, and you talk about the institutional knowledge that he for sure has passed on to his son. That's a significant thing. I mean, he clearly has taught him some things that will probably serve him well in the fight. And Jake, you know, just how good of a boxer and how tough Jake Paul is, I think is going to be revealed on that night.
Yeah. And the thing that's telling is if you look at all the Rahman interviews, the press conference, all that, he is very, very confident. Like, he is just supremely confident in a way that seems more than just trash talk. You know, he is, you know, the knock on him has been discipline and conditioning through his career. But again, you give a guy a career opportunity, a life-changing opportunity, you're going to get the best performance out of that guy. And that's what we're going to get from Hasim Rahman. I believe he's going to be more in shape, more motivated than he has been at any point in his career. And we're going to find out how good he really is, you know, and Jake as well.
Well, yeah, and real briefly, I mean, I know this is very hard for you to say, but moving forward with Jake Paul, I mean, do you already have some guys in mind, or has he floated some names where you see, you know, the type of fighter he's going to be going against? And is he going to fight again this calendar year in Victory?
I think there's a possibility that he fights again this year. I would say it's 50-50. It really depends on this fight and how long it takes to recover. But, you know, I think going forward, I know he said that he would really be fighting professional boxers from here on out, but there's still some non-boxers that I think would be really intriguing and would be challenging. You know, there's the big one that everyone keeps talking about, which is Nate Diaz, which is a fantastic promotion, and I think an entertaining fight. Yeah, you know, and there have been discussions with Anderson Silva as well, and I think both of those are really intriguing fights. And I think both of those are possible. I mean, obviously, Nate has a fight now within the UFC, but I think those are very possible. Or, you know, look, we internally go back and forth. We've got, you know, 2 strikes on Tommy Fury. I still feel like there's some business to be done there. There's unfinished business. If we could ever, you know, get something reliable that we could depend on, then I still think, look, we've been building it up for, you know, at this point since last summer. You know, it's been a full year. We've been talking about a Tommy Fury fight, you know, when he appeared on Jake's undercard in August. And so now here we are now a year later. If we're able to, you know, finally put those 2 guys in the ring on fight night, I still think that there would be a lot of interest in that.
Nate Diaz is going to be a free agent after this September fight in the UFC. You have a relationship with him?
A little bit, not great. Some of our other guys who were here for longer during the strike force period.
Yeah.
Chris Blasio talks to both Nick and Nate. You know, and certainly Dinkins and others who were there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we did I'm not sure that I was here for a Diaz fight.
Okay.
Of course, I think I came a little bit late.
Okay, great. Yeah, no problem. That would be a natural, Stephen. That would obviously, I don't need to tell you.
That'd be a lot of fun. That
Oh
would
my
be a
gosh.
lot of fun.
Yeah.
You know, the promotion would be, you know, worth as much as the fight itself.
Yeah.